Good morning. I'm Sarah Hoffman, and I'm running to be the next Premier of Alberta. I'm speaking today on Treaty 6 territory, home for the Cree, Blackfoot, Dene, Nakota Sioux, Saulteaux, Iroquois, and of course the traditional homelands of the Métis. I'm joined by Juan Vargas, who's a prominent environmental activist here in Edmonton, and the Honorable Marlon Schmidt, the Climate Policy Chair for my campaign. I'm here to announce the most aggressive plan to respond to climate change in the history of Alberta. I know some folks are going to say that this goes too far, but when I see what Alberta is facing, like catastrophic drought, unprecedented wildfires, and air that isn't safe for our kids to breathe on a summer's day, I know that it's time for dramatic action. The time for creative accounting and fun with numbers or aspirational goals is over. We must reduce carbon emissions that drive climate change and threaten our way of life. Specifically, we must reduce carbon emissions by 35% below current levels by 2035. I'll give you some policy specifics in a moment, but let me first start with the principles that guide me. The first is that the polluter pays. Corporations who are making record profits from pulling carbon out of the ground need to be in the business of pulling carbon out of the air. The second is that public dollars should be used to help members of the public reduce their emissions and their energy bills. And the third is that we need to build an economy for the future, now. Our American competitors are racing ahead on this while Alberta is standing still. You can see the tremendous economic potential of renewable energy here at Bayware Solar Systems, and I want to thank them very much for hosting us today. Here are some of the specifics. As Premier, I'll take back control of carbon policy by implementing a Made in Alberta cap and trade system to replace the federal carbon tax, oil and gas cap, methane regulations, and clean electricity regulation. I'll adapt Alberta's existing industrial carbon price, known as TIER, to form part of a new cap and trade system and expand it to cover all industrial emissions. And we will redirect the revenue away from industry subsidies and the UCP Energy War Room and into ways to actually help Albertans reduce their emissions and their bills. We will recommit to a net zero electricity grid by 2035. And we will launch a Solar for All program that makes electricity more affordable for individuals, families, small businesses, community groups, and First Nations. We will reverse the UCP's policy of sabotaging commercial renewable energy projects on day one, and we will bring these projects to the forefront of the queue for regulatory approval. We will bring more energy storage onto the grid, and we will upgrade transmission and distribution systems for a renewable energy future. We will establish a Crown corporation that will provide low-emission public transportation between Alberta communities, and we will help build out the EV infrastructure along provincial highways and within major municipalities. And by the way, we will cancel Danielle Smith's tax on EVs and replace it with a rebate. All of this will require a wholesale rebuild of the Alberta Energy Regulator, and to provide it with real independence from industry and space from political pressure. It's also going to take a whole lot of work, and I'm really excited by this part. A Sarah Hoffman government will establish a Youth Climate Corps. This is a one-stop shop for young Albertans who want to take control of their own climate destiny. A Youth Climate Corps will connect them with good-paying jobs and will make meaningful action in response to climate change. This could be building renewable energy projects, building protection for communities against the effects of climate change by building berms or fire smarting those municipalities, and responding to extreme events like floods and fires. It's clear that we now need year-round wildfire response, and that many communities will require help to protect their residents from the impacts of wildfires. These will be union jobs with embedded training and trade qualifications and post-secondary education. There's a similar program launching in the United States, and I suspect that we'll see similar initiatives announced elsewhere in Canada as well. Alberta cannot be left behind. Young Albertans shouldn't have to leave the province that they love to have these economic opportunities and meaningful employment. Some of these jobs will be in cleaning up the mess that's been left behind on well sites. I will require industry to pay the full cost of reclaiming their inactive wells, and will get every single well cleaned up by 2050. I will also hold corporations responsible for polluting sensitive areas, such as Imperial Oil's egregious spill at the Curl site. We must be more vigilant than ever before about protecting Albertans, water, and our air. We are entering a new era of air quality warnings and water scarcity. We need a deep review of how we use water in Alberta and how we protect Albertans from harmful smoke, especially our children. So as Premier, I will require that all new public buildings have air filtration systems and develop a plan to retrofit existing buildings, particularly our schools. We will undertake a serious review of water allocations within Alberta's treaty obligations as well. I believe water should be prioritized for people, then agriculture, and then industrial use. I want to support Alberta farmers and ranchers in adapting to drier long-term conditions and support utilities in implementing demand management techniques. And lastly, I will ban new coal mines. I know this is a lot. This is real action on the three sectors that produce the most carbon emissions in Alberta: oil and gas, our electricity grid, and transportation. And my plan helps individual Albertans and families and communities reduce their costs. It gives young people hope that they can turn this problem around before it's too late. And my plan sends the bill to the folks who made the most money creating this problem in the first place. Ban coal mines, build wind turbines. The industrial carbon tax goes up, Albertans' power bills go down. Clean up abandoned wells and build EV charging stations. It's bold, it's ambitious, and it's unapologetically NDP. It's a solution to address the climate crisis. I'm now pleased to introduce Juan Vargas.
Good morning. My name is Juan Vargas. I'm a climate organizer here in Edmonton, and I couldn't be more excited to endorse the vision that Sarah Hoffman is bringing on climate. It's easy to say we're in a climate emergency. We know it, Albertans know it. In fact, it's a bit difficult to ignore. What is difficult, as it turns out, is acting like we're in a climate emergency. We're told to act small, to rustle as few feathers as possible, to simply incentivize changes, and to set distant deadlines. I can give you a spoiler right now, that's not gonna work. So when I hear someone like Sarah speak about her vision on climate, I know that she understands this moment. On climate, Sarah stands in her own lane. She understands that to face a threat like climate change, we have to act with the scale that the crisis demands. That means regulating polluters on our terms, not theirs. That means making obvious decisions to curb our emissions now, like banning new coal mines. And that means following in the footsteps of great new Democrats before us and creating the institutions to get the job done. Danielle Smith wants us to believe she alone can stop a global energy transition. She's so sure, in fact, that she's chosen to shut down any progress on renewables, on good green jobs, and on making our cities less polluted. That's because Danielle Smith works for her millionaire buddies, not for workers in oil and gas, unsure about whether they'll have work a month from now. Not for the single parent who has to choose between absurd utility bills or absurd grocery prices. And certainly not for the hundreds of thousands of young people in this province who can't wait until 2050 for government to decide it wants to do something. So on the topic of young people, let me tell you what I'm the proudest of: the Youth Climate Corps, a massive new crown corporation that would employ thousands of us, building and protecting the communities that we deserve, paying us a living wage, offering us pathways to future careers and education. And yes, finally giving what so many of us want, which is access to union representation. Because climate is a labor issue, and labor is a climate issue. A youth climate corps isn't just a popular idea, it also makes sense. We already have most of the technology that we need to reduce our emissions. We simply aren't doing it fast enough. A youth climate corps wouldn't just accelerate our mitigation efforts, it would let us do it directly within our communities, building the relationships and skills we need to transform this province for the better. But just as importantly, it would reach out to an entire generation of young people who have been left behind, let down, and abandoned by their leaders, and who are losing faith in a better future. It would look them in the eye and it would tell them, you are what this moment needs. Last year, on a door, a stranger confided in me that he used to believe climate change was a hoax. He looked up at the smoky sky and said he couldn't believe that anymore. Albertans are ready to talk about climate change. They're ready for the solutions that show them that life can get easier. And they're ready for a leader who won't back down from what is quite literally a battle for our lives. That leader and that premier is Sarah Hoffman.
Well, thank you, Juan, for that remarks, and thank you, Sarah, for rolling out such an aggressive and meaningful plan for climate change. We need urgent action, and that's what Sarah told us to propose, and that's what you've seen in this plan today. The plan is achievable using existing technology and many of the commitments that industry has already made publicly. But we need a government that takes this threat seriously and isn't afraid to ask highly profitable corporations to pay their fair share.
Thanks so much, Marlon and Juan, and now we're happy to take your questions.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any questions on the phone. Just a reminder to press *9 if you're joining us on the phone, and you use the raise hand function if you're joining us via Zoom. We'll go to our first question.
Oh, hi, it's Lisa from the Edmonton Journal-Herald.
Hi, Lisa.
I'm just wondering, you just listed like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could be pretty expensive. Have you costed any of this, or do you plan on costing it?
I definitely do when we run the next election and create the next platform for the next election. We'll see how much of this Danielle Smith takes action on in the next 3 years. But I will say that the cost of not doing this is so much more than the cost of doing it. It's important that we invest the money, and it will probably be hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars, in making sure that we are protecting our cities. We know that last year we spent almost $3 billion fighting wildfires alone. So investing in upfront in the Climate Corps, making sure that we take the money that's being generated through the cheer system and putting it back in people's pockets to help them reduce their bills. This is absolutely fundamental to make sure that we have a strong energy future and great air, land, and water for all of us to live on. So we'll have detailed costing items after I become the leader and when we're getting ready for the next election.
Any follow-up, Lisa? And we'll go to our next caller.
Catherine Rapowski, Alberta Today. So what's the plan for the workers who are in the oil and gas sector? What is their transition look like under this plan?
Yeah, I've been meeting with a number of different labor leaders and workers directly, and I will say that many who are operating engineers, for example, who work up in the oil sands, also now do work building large industrial wind turbines. Operating heavy equipment is the same whether you're working in one area of the province or another, whether you're building oil sands project or whether you're building a turbine. And most of those folks are very happy to have good paying jobs right across the province building projects that are going to be able to power our province and pay their mortgages. And that's the plan, is that we're going to keep building more wind. That's one of the reasons why we're going to get rid of the ban immediately on day one. Large solar projects, smaller solar projects, like this company alone where I'm sitting today employs almost 40 Albertans. And there's so many more who want to work in this industry. If we make it accessible for people to put solar on their homes, no matter where they live in the province, there's going to be other jobs popping up with small local employers as well as larger industrial employers. And they're going to be mortgage paying jobs that help prepare us for a clean energy future.
Any follow-up, Catherine?
Yeah, and so similar to Lisa's question on the cost, I'm wondering, have you done anything on the economic impact, how this will affect GDP and so on?
Yeah, we'll definitely have more to say about that again in the next platform that we run for in the general election. But what I can tell you is that by refusing to act now, we are absolutely losing jobs, large industrial jobs in wind and solar to the United States. They're investing heavily in this. They're attracting workers, skilled workers, unionized trade workers, to go there instead of staying here. And I know that other provinces are also looking at potentially putting this initiative very similar to this forward in the next election campaign or in their next budget. So I don't want to be a lagger. I want to make sure that we build great jobs here, that we're fire smarting our municipalities, water smarting them, and that we're getting ready for the future, not planning for the past. So there will absolutely be an economic impact to GDP if we do nothing, which is currently Danielle Smith's plan, and a very positive one, I am certain, if we're building more industrial jobs and having more opportunities for young people to be part of good paying, mortgage paying workforce.
That's all for today. Thank you very much.